One, two, three,
Alabama, a state that many people might only know by name, but once you dive into its history, its culture, and its landscapes, you realize that it holds a story much bigger than what most imagine. This is the heart of the Deep South, a land that has shaped American history in ways that continue to echo today. And in this journey, I invite you to stay with me until the very end, because Alabama will surprise you in ways you never expected. The story of Alabama begins long before it became the 22nd state of the United States. Its name comes from the Native American tribe called the Alabamu, part of the great Muskogee Nation, people who lived here long before Europeans arrived. Their heritage still whispers in the rivers, forests, and towns that spread across the land. To understand Alabama is to understand a land where ancient roots mix with modern life. But Alabama is more than history and books. It is a living, breathing place where the civil rights movement fought some of its hardest battles. Cities like Montgomery, Birmingham, and Selma are not just names on a map. They are symbols of courage, sacrifice, and change. Walking through the streets of Montgomery feels like stepping into a chapter of history that still moves the world. It was here that Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. Here, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. lifted his voice. Alabama became a stage for justice, and the echoes of those days are still powerful today. And yet, Alabama is not only about its struggles. It is about resilience, pride, and beauty. The land itself is breathtaking. From the Appalachian foothills in the north to the white sandy beaches along the Gulf Coast, Alabama is filled with contrasts. Imagine driving through rolling green hills, stopping by small towns where time feels slower, and then reaching Mobile Bay, where the water sparkles under the southern sun. This mix of landscapes makes the state a hidden treasure for travelers. But let's not forget about the people. Alabama's spirit lives in its communities, warm, welcoming, and proud of who they are. Sit down in a local diner, and you'll hear stories that carry the weight of generations. You'll taste food that defines Southern culture: fried chicken, cornbread, collard greens, and of course, sweet tea so cold and sweet, it feels like tradition in a glass. This is not just food. This is identity. And in Alabama, identity matters. So stay with me, because Alabama is not just a stop on the map. It is a journey into the soul of the South, and we are only getting started. As you continue to move across Alabama, the deeper layers of its character begin to unfold. This is not just a state you pass through, it's a state you feel. The landscapes, the music, the accents, and the traditions all wrap around you, pulling you into a rhythm that is unmistakably Southern, unmistakably Alabama. Let's talk about the music. Alabama has given birth to sounds that shaped America's soundtrack. In the small town of Muscle Shoals, tucked along the Tennessee River, something magical happened in the 1960s and 70s. This little studio became a legendary spot where artists like Aretha Franklin, the Rolling Stones, and Otis Redding recorded songs that the world would never forget. The Muscle Shoals sound, soulful, raw, and powerful, still echoes through the state today. If you drive by that unassuming building, you might not realize the history inside. But once you know, you can almost hear the guitar strings and the voices that defined an era. And then there's jazz in Birmingham, gospel choirs in Montgomery, and the unmistakable twang of country music in rural towns. Alabama is not just part of music history, it is one of its pillars. When you hear the sounds of the South, you are hearing Alabama's heartbeat. But music is only one part of the story. Let's shift to nature. Alabama is sometimes called Alabama the Beautiful, and for good reason. Imagine hiking through forests where waterfalls tumble over cliffs, like at Little River Canyon or DeSoto Falls. Imagine standing at Cheaha Mountain, the highest point in the state, looking out over rolling green ridges that seem endless. These aren't just landscapes, they are sanctuaries. They invite you to slow down, breathe deeper, and realize how much beauty lies hidden in places many overlook. In the southern part of the state, the story changes. Here, the Gulf Coast stretches wide and open, offering some of the most underrated beaches in the country. Gulf Shores and Orange Beach boast powdery white sand and emerald waters that rival any Caribbean postcard. Families gather here, fishermen cast their lines at sunrise, and the ocean breeze carries with it the easygoing spirit of coastal Alabama. It's here that you understand. Alabama is not only about history, it's also about escape, relaxation, and connection with nature. And yet, while the land and music are powerful, what truly defines Alabama is its people. The resilience of Alabamians has been tested time and again. From the scars of the Civil War to the hardships of the Great Depression, from the fire hoses of Birmingham to the tornadoes that sweep across the plains, the people of Alabama have endured. And out of that endurance comes a pride, not arrogant, but rooted, deep, and unshakable. They know who they are, and they carry their identity with strength. In small towns, you'll find communities that still gather on front porches, where neighbors know each other by name, and where hospitality is more than a custom. It's a way of life. In the cities, you'll feel a pulse of growth, innovation, and change, but always tied to tradition. This balance between past and future is what makes Alabama so intriguing. And for those of you watching, this is exactly why I invite you to stay with me through this journey. Because Alabama is not just one story, it is hundreds, thousands of stories layered on top of one another. Stories of music, struggle, beauty, and hope. Stories that remind us of where we've been and inspire us about where we're going. So, if you're enjoying this trip into the heart of the South, make sure you stay until the end, because we're only scratching the surface. Alabama has much more to reveal, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Now let us step into the heart of Alabama's cities, each of them carrying its own unique soul, its own rhythm, and its own place in the story of this state. To truly understand Alabama, you cannot only look at the countryside and small towns, you must also walk through the streets of its cities, because each one represents a chapter of history and a vision for the future. let's begin with Birmingham. Known once as the Magic City, Birmingham grew almost overnight in the late 1800s, when iron and steel transformed it into an industrial powerhouse. Imagine a city rising from the ground, fueled by mines and furnaces, its streets alive with workers chasing the promise of prosperity. But Birmingham's name carries more than industry. It became the beating heart of the civil rights movement. In the 1960s, the city was the stage of some of the darkest and yet most transformative moments in American history. The images of children marching, of fire hoses and police dogs, are still etched into the collective memory. And yet, Birmingham didn't fall under the weight of its past. It transformed. Today, it is a city of resilience, where you'll find museums and memorials like the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, reminding every visitor that progress is built on struggle and courage. Beyond history, Birmingham has blossomed into a hub of culture, with art galleries, music festivals, and a growing food scene that blends tradition with innovation. Next, let's travel to Montgomery, the capital of Alabama. Montgomery is not just another southern city, it is a symbol. Here, Rosa Parks refused to give up her bus seat, sparking the Montgomery bus boycott that changed the course of civil rights forever. Here, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, preaching words that still inspire the world. Walking in Montgomery is like walking inside a living classroom, where every corner has something to teach. But the city is not only about its past, it's about resilience, about reinventing itself while honoring the people who shaped the nation. The Alabama state capitol stands as a reminder of the power that flowed from this city, not only in politics, but also in social change. And if you explore further, you'll find a city that embraces art, music, and a growing sense of community that looks to the future. Now let's go north, to Huntsville. This is Alabama's city of innovation, known as the Rocket City. Why? Because it was here that scientists and engineers developed the rockets that sent humans to the moon. Yes, right here in Alabama, at the Marshall Space Flight Center, history was written in the stars. Huntsville is where the dreams of space exploration became reality. And today, the city continues to thrive as a center of technology, research, and aerospace development. But Huntsville isn't just about science and rockets. It also offers a charming downtown, leafy neighborhoods, and outdoor spaces like Montesano State Park, where the natural beauty of Alabama blends with the ambition of the future. Huntsville shows the world that Alabama is not only tradition, it is also innovation and progress. And finally, let's head south, to Mobile. This is a city of colors, traditions, and coastal charm. Did you know that Mobile, not New Orleans, is the birthplace of Mardi Gras in the United States? Long before the parades rolled down Bourbon Street, they rolled through Mobile's streets, filling the air with music, costumes, and joy. Mobile is a city that celebrates life, blending French, Spanish, and Southern influences in its architecture, its food, and its spirit. And being right on the Gulf of Mexico, Mobile is also a city of sailors, fishermen, and trade. The waterfront buzzes with energy. While historic oak-lined streets tell stories of centuries past, Mobile feels alive, festive, and welcoming, a city that balances history with the joy of celebration. When you put these cities together, Birmingham, Montgomery, Huntsville, and Mobile, you begin to see the full picture of Alabama. This is a state of contrasts, where steel mills meet jazz clubs, where rockets meet rivers, where history meets progress. Each city contributes its own voice, creating a chorus that is uniquely Alabama. And if you are still with me, thank you, because Alabama is a journey best taken with patience and curiosity. Each city deserves to be seen, to be walked, to be felt. And in every corner, you'll find reminders of resilience, pride, and transformation. This is not a story you want to cut short, because the deeper you go, the richer it becomes.
Dreaming of more. There lies the lion in the dark, full from all that he's eaten, heart content on feeding more from the motherland.
Culture in Alabama is everywhere, in its kitchens, in its music, in its festivals, and in the way people live day by day. To understand Alabama, you have to taste, hear, and feel it, because here tradition is not just remembered, it is lived. Let's begin with food. In Alabama, food is more than a meal. It is heritage. Barbecue is the most famous tradition, but it changes with the region. In the north, you'll discover smoked chicken covered in a tangy white sauce, a style unique to Alabama and a surprise for many visitors. In central Alabama, pork is king. Pulled pork sandwiches with smoky flavors that linger, ribs slow cooked until the meat falls off the bone, and cornbread served hot from cast iron skillets. Down south by the Gulf, seafood takes the spotlight. Oysters served fresh from the bay, shrimp so sweet they almost melt in your mouth, and fried catfish with hush puppies on the side. And of course, every table is completed with the iconic glass of sweet tea. This is not just food. It is a tradition that tells the story of family, community, and time. But food is only the first step. Music is another heartbeat of Alabama. From gospel choirs that raise voices every Sunday morning, to blues clubs in small towns where guitars cry late into the night, music is everywhere. We already talked about the legendary Muscle Shoals, but music doesn't stop there. College marching bands turn football games into full performances, with brass and drums shaking the stands. Festivals fill the streets with local singers, jazz rhythms, and country melodies. Music here is not a performance for tourists. It is daily life, and it carries the soul of Alabama. And speaking of festivals, Alabama knows how to celebrate. Mobile is home to the oldest Mardi Gras in America, a tradition that began before New Orleans became famous for it. During these parades, floats roll through the streets, crowds cheer, and beads fly through the air, filling the city with color and joy. Elsewhere, towns host seafood festivals, peanut festivals, and harvest fairs, each one a chance for communities to come together. These are not just parties. They are living traditions that honor the land, the sea, and the people who work them. Sports also hold a sacred place in Alabama's culture. College football is not just entertainment here. It is a way of life. Every autumn, stadiums in Tuscaloosa and Auburn become seas of orange, blue, and crimson. Tailgates turn into giant family reunions, grills fire up, and marching bands electrify the atmosphere before kickoff. The rivalry between the University of Alabama and Auburn University is one of the fiercest in the country, dividing households, but uniting the state in passion. Even if you're just visiting, you'll feel the energy and understand why Saturdays in Alabama are unforgettable. Nature, too, is part of the cultural fabric. The people of Alabama celebrate their land, not only through festivals, but through everyday life. Families fish along the rivers, children swim in lakes during summer, and hikers climb trails in the Appalachian foothills, for views that stretch endlessly. In the South, the Gulf Coast beaches invite visitors to relax, celebrate, and reconnect. This relationship between people and land is strong and timeless, forming traditions that are as natural as the seasons themselves. And at the center of it all are the people. Southern hospitality is real, and in Alabama, it is something you feel immediately. Walk into a small diner, and someone will greet you like they've known you for years. Ask for directions, and you'll not only get an answer, but often a story about the place you're heading. Neighbors look out for each other, and visitors are welcomed as friends. This warmth is not a marketing slogan. It is a way of life. So when you experience Alabama's culture, you are not just watching from the outside. You become part of it, whether it's through a shared meal, a song that moves you, a game that fills the air with cheers, or a festival that sweeps you into its joy. This is Alabama's gift: traditions that are alive, communities that welcome you, and a culture that invites you to return again and again. But in the resilience of its people, the echoes of its history, and the promise of its future. Driving across Alabama, you realize how much variety can fit into one place. In the north, the Appalachian foothills rise, carrying trails that lead to waterfalls and overlooks where the world seems endless. In the center, rolling farmlands stretch under wide skies, reminding you of the strength of those who built their lives from the soil. And in the south, the Gulf Coast greets you with white sandy beaches and waters that shimmer emerald under the sun. It is a state where nature shifts constantly, yet always feels connected, always feels whole. But Alabama's landscapes would mean little without its people. And it is the people who make the greatest impression. They are storytellers, carrying the voices of ancestors who lived through both triumph and tragedy. They are dreamers, like the engineers of Huntsville, who looked up to the stars and brought humanity to the moon. They are fighters, like the men and women of Montgomery, Birmingham, and Selma, who stood against injustice and changed the course of American history. And they are hosts, welcoming strangers with a plate of food, a smile, and an open door. Hospitality here is not a choice. It is tradition. It is identity. The past is never far in Alabama. The shadows of history remain visible and sometimes heavy. But what makes Alabama remarkable is the way it transforms those shadows into lessons, into calls for justice, into reminders of progress. To stand on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma is to feel the weight of courage. To walk through the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute is to hear the voices that refuse to be silenced. Alabama is not afraid of its past. It carries it, learns from it, and continues forward. Yet Alabama is not only reflection, it is also celebration. Mardi Gras parades in Mobile, music flowing from Muscle Shoals, the roar of football stadiums, the laughter of families gathered for seafood festivals. These are the sounds of joy, of life being lived fully. And when you taste barbecue with white sauce, or catfish straight from the fryer, or a slice of warm pecan pie, you realize that Alabama's culture is not just about the grand moments of history, but also about the everyday pleasures that turn strangers into friends. As night falls in Alabama, the state feels even more alive. Fireflies flicker across fields. Jazz hums from a corner bar. The Gulf breeze rolls softly through the streets of Mobile. And in small towns, front porches glow with conversations that stretch into the night. It is in these quiet, ordinary moments that you understand what makes Alabama extraordinary. For those watching, I invite you to see Alabama not just as a destination, but as an experience. Take the road less traveled. Stop in the small towns. Walk through the historic streets and talk with the people who call this place home. Because Alabama is not something you simply visit. It is something you carry with you after the journey ends. And so, as we close this chapter, remember, Alabama is the sound of gospel on a Sunday morning, the taste of sweet tea in the summer heat, the sight of waves breaking along the Gulf, and the feeling of courage in the footsteps of those who changed the world. It is a state of contrasts, of struggles and celebrations, of pain and pride, of history and hope. It is a reminder that the heart of the South beats strong, and its story is still being written. So stay curious, keep traveling, and never forget that sometimes the most unexpected places hold the greatest treasures. Alabama is proof of that.